You all wanted me to rank and review every Pokémon movie, so, I'm doing it. I don't know why I'm doing it. Maybe a sense of masochism has awakened inside of me. I tried to find out if that was the case when I put a sword through my chances are I've just gone insane. There are 23 of these movies, and that doesn't even include Detective Pikachu, which I actually really like. So I have no idea how the hell I'll be able to do this without needing a break. So I will make sure to take breaks whenever I need them. I'm going into this knowing full well that it'll drive me even more insane than I already am. But yeah, you get the gist of these. Since I'm watching them in order of release, I'll be reviewing them in the same way. As such, this will be the first part of a 6-part series discussing every Pokémon movie. With that out of the way, let's go to hell. I went into the first movie, or by how everyone else remembers it, Mewtwo Strikes Back, with the lowest expectations imaginable. I thought this movie would suck, and at best be alright. I found myself being surprised though, as I liked the movie a lot. Now, it's not perfect, there are problems with it, like Golem dying to a Thunderbolt, a Water-type trainer being shown with a Nidoqueen, Ash punching Mewtwo instead of fishing for a 20% Tauros crit, and the final fight being pretty poorly paced, with Ash's death coming off as manipulative instead of emotional. It's because of this that I find this film to be fairly flawed, despite the things it does right. What I can tell with this film, though, is that the people behind it actually tried, which is something that few of these movies could claim to say. I do want to say one thing, though, and it's how some of my problems could be seen as nitpicks, and I agree, this is the kind of stuff that'll only annoy a hardcore Pokemon fan like myself, and while Golem Terra watering against a Pikachu is hilarious, it's equally immersion-breaking. Staying true to the games is very important to me, and that's what gives Pokemon its identity. It's because of this that even if you can gloss over something like that, I can't. Despite this, I do have to talk about the ending, and why I largely dislike it. Before we do that, though, I want to focus on what I liked, as I do like this film far more than I dislike it. To start, the introduction to this movie is unironically incredible, and it'll probably stay the best 20 minutes of any of these movies. It's surprisingly dark, with Dr. Fuji throwing away everything else in his life to create the perfect Pokémon. One of those things being his family. For plot reasons that would be too long to explain, Mewtwo gets to see the loss of Dr. Fuji's daughter. When he wakes up, he doesn't remember the event, but he still feels that same angry confusion as before, resulting in him killing everyone in the lab. When Giovanni later meets him then, he teams up with him in an attempt to figure out what he is. And when Giovanni can't give a satisfactory answer, he parts ways with him and issues an open challenge to every trainer around him. What does it mean to be human? And what does it mean to be a Pokemon? And what is the importance of the relationship between people and Pokemon? Can Ash convince the invincible Mewtwo that these things matter before he destroys the world? It's these questions that build the thematic backbone of the film, and it's what makes this introductory act so fantastic. The film doesn't even slow down after that too, as Ash's journey to find Mewtwo is pretty well done too. One thing this film does such a good job at is making Mewtwo seem like this immovable force. Even by the end, he's barely scratched, as the battle becomes more about preventing him from doing any more damage as opposed to defeating him. I think the moment that best exemplifies this is when Ash saves his Pikachu from having a machine stick their thingies in him. God, that sounds so weird. Sure, the tension dies when you realize that none of the Pokemon actually died, and were just used to make copies, but before we find that out, it's extremely tense. I can't keep beating around the jump left though, as I do have to address the ending. It's not that bad, it just fell short of my expectations. I don't know, I just couldn't get behind Ash's fake-out death. I hate fake-out deaths, as they never feel earned, and it doesn't help that tears were what brought him back to life. It's not to say the ending is actually bad then, more so just saying that it pissed me off specifically. Like, it works thematically as Ash's death convinces Mewtwo that the bond between people and Pokemon means something truly special, but I still find it to be such an underwhelming way to conclude what is otherwise a surprisingly strong movie. So, 7 out of 10, currently number 1 on the ranking. I almost never heard people talk about 2000, so that didn't lend itself well to my expectations. I assumed it would be forgettable and boring, and I was right. Combine that with the many problems it has as a film, and I struggled hard to finish this one. One thing that might have affected my enjoyment, though, was that I watched the English dub. I'm trying to watch as many of these subbed as I can, given how I want to watch the original version without any major dialogue and soundtrack changes. However, Amazon wouldn't let me watch the subbed version, and totally legal streaming site didn't have it either. This will apply to movies 3 and 4 also, by the way. Despite this, I didn't find it to be that big big of an issue. The voice acting wasn't good or anything, but it was at least passable. One thing I forgot too was how 4Kids would change the insert songs, so instead of getting a Boehner J-pop song, you instead get cheesy songs with scream 90s in the funniest way possible. I'm not gonna lie though, I like both a lot. But yeah, to the movie itself, it seems fine on the surface, and I thought it would stay that way, but it kept on losing me the longer it went on. It's not like it's fundamentally flawed though. The idea of freeing the legendary birds from an evil collector is a cool idea. Despite this, the execution, despite mostly being fine, falls short for one very important reason. The villain sucks! He's so boring! And not only that, but I can't even take him seriously, because he's an idiot! There's this one scene where the characters appear at his base, and he's so obnoxiously mentally handicapped that he lets all of them stay in his base and attempt to free the birds. You can call him cocky, but I think this goes beyond being cocky. This dude is just stupid. As for why he's boring though, I think it's because we don't know anything about him. He wants to collect every Pokemon without their consent. And while this could be interesting, you never get to understand why he feels this way. I'm not saying he needs to be sympathetic either. I just want something that can make him interesting. That's ultimately what holds this movie down. While Mewtwo Strikes Back had surprisingly personal stakes for a character we grew to care about very quickly, this film resorts to world-ending stakes that don't feel important at all, since I don't care about anything that's happening. None of the characters are interesting, and combine that with how little theming there is outside of, oh, don't abuse Pokemon, okay? And then you have a movie which is far worse than people make it out to be. Not only does it have all these problems too, but they also pull a BS, she's the chosen one plot at the end, and it's infuriating! Unless they dive into the chosen one's self-doubt about being the chosen one, then I find this plotline to be extremely frustrating, since it doesn't give credit to a character's actual ability, and just says, yeah, they'll just win anyway. God, this film pisses me off so much. I'm baffled no one talks about this one, cause it sucks. My only positive points are that I think the talking Slowbro and Lugia are funny, and that I think the story is perfectly acceptable. But yeah, this one blew. So, 3 out of 10, currently number 2 on the ranking. While normally I try to weasel in a Patreon plug, doing so wouldn't work here. So let's plug something I haven't plugged in years. If you want to know my opinions on these films before I release my videos on them, then you can either follow me on Letterboxd or send me a friend request on my anime list, where you can see great takes like me giving Oremo an 8 out of 10, and me giving Angel Beats a 4 out of 10. With that out of the way, don't forget to subscribe as we go back to our regularly scheduled garbage. The official English name is 3 the Movie, but that rolls terribly, so I'll be calling it Spell of the Unown, since that's what it said at the title screen. As mentioned previously, I had to watch the dub, and while it was mostly good this time, I found myself wanting to put a bullet through my head every time they mispronounced unknown as unknown. It's unknown, get it right! Despite this, I can somewhat forgive it, because while in the games, you'd want to unknown, in this movie, unknown is a genuinely threatening force. Sure, this completely goes against game logic where unknown is a joke, funnier than even Delibird, but for the sake of this movie, I gotta say that this version of it is far more faithful to the lore than even the games. Not only that, but unknown is genuinely cool here. Despite this, I still couldn't take the first scene even remotely seriously when the film called Unown a legendary. Again, this thing has stats equivalent to a love disc. I got over that rather quickly though, as I ended up realizing how great the concept for this film is. The film is surprisingly dark, with it focusing on Molly's grief surrounding the loss of her parents. Sure, I wouldn't delude myself into thinking it could be as good as something like Anohana, which handles the subject matter to perfection, but if done well enough, I could at least get emotional. I didn't get emotional. And it's not like I lack emotion either. Here's a quick list of things that made me cry on screen, some of which are stupid too. Like, how the hell did I cry to Bunny Girl Senpai? Granted, that's not to say the film is bad, as it still does get a lot right. A struggle with writing a story like this is that you both have to give a good explanation for why Molly would want to escape Unknown's illusions, and you have to find a way to integrate Ash into the plot. The film does an amazing job at both by doing one thing, which is having Entei steal Ash's mom and force her into the role of Molly's mom. Not only does this make Ash's integration to the plot feel natural, but it also makes the stakes significantly more personal, which I find myself preferring in these movies. Hell, there's even a little something for those who like world-ending stakes too, as the stronger Molly's desire to stay in this distorted world lasts, the stronger Unown becomes, threatening the whole world as a result. It's for this reason that Molly not only needs to learn to let go of her past and move on, but she also needs to learn to consider the feelings of others, as things that may make her happy happy could break the hearts of those around her. It's for all these reasons that I consider Molly to be an incredible antagonist, and even if I may not have teared up or anything, I still found it to be beautiful. But now, I want to talk about my problems with the movie. This movie is so close to being good, but the pacing is what ultimately turned a film I'd like into one that I struggled with more than I would have liked. For such an emotional story, I feel like not enough time is placed on the emotions they feel. You don't see Ash down in the dumps about losing his mom, and while enough time was placed on Molly, I would have wanted more. This film struggles with juggling the plots of the two characters, and it's sad to say. I don't even know if making the film longer would have helped either, as the pacing felt pretty slow to me. I wish I could explain it better, but I feel like it's that lack of commitment to that great story which holds it back. I, at the very least, like it though, so 6 out of 10, currently number 2 on the ranking. Forever is a weird one to talk about. The first impressions weren't bad though. One thing that I'm surprised by is just how gorgeous the backgrounds of this film are. I might be alone in thinking that, but damn do these look good. Another thing that boosted my enjoyment is that I'm finally back to watching subs. One convenient thing too is that the subtitles still used the English names for my convenience. But yeah, outside of those two things, the first half of this film isn't that bad. Despite this, there are still some cracks that should have helped me see how much of a train wreck this film would become. One thing that caught my attention instantly was how lame the villain is. He's somehow even more boring than the 2000 villain. Like, I at least liked his voice. There's just nothing even here for this villain. He's just a generic madman who wants to see the world burn. What makes this even worse is how stupid the concept of the Dark Ball is. When it was revealed, I legit had to pause because I was laughing so hard I couldn't even look at the screen. The idea of a Pokeball which turns Pokemon evil is just too dumb, and it makes it even harder to take the villain seriously. Major problems aside though, there is a nitpick I want to touch on, and it's how obnoxious the mythical trend is in these movies, and this film gets the blame for starting it. You see, mythical Pokemon are made available after a game comes out, so in order to capitalize on that hype and have people buy more games, Pokemon will make a movie hyping up that new Pokemon. Back in 2001, or 2002 if you're American like me, then that Pokemon was Celebi. Even though this trend is annoying though, that doesn't mean that it inherently makes a film bad. They can still be good, and hell, Celebi is one of the better parts of this movie's first half. Like, this is the first time I've ever actively found Celebi cute. So, that's all for the first half. Even though I was complaining most of the time, I actually didn't dislike this film. It didn't actively piss me off, and there was a glue holding it all together. That glue was Sam. Sam, despite not having much of a personality, is easily the best part of this film, and if put into a better story, could truly shine. The moment I realized that is when he's talking to Ash at night. Sam was forced into traveling 40 years into the future by Celebi, and it's in doing this that he's realized all he's lost. For the first time ever, I connected with him, and felt genuinely bad for how awful his situation must have been. The icing on the cake, though, comes when Ash tells him that it's okay to feel the way that he does, but that he can still find happiness even despite that. I don't know why, but this scene connected with me hard. Despite this is also the last time this film even manages to be okay. This film falls apart in the second half, and turns a perfectly fine movie into one of the biggest train wrecks I've ever seen. To start off, there's a major, story-destroying plot hole which is hard to ignore. If Celebi can time travel, then why couldn't Celebi travel further in time to prevent the entire conflict from even happening? Is Celebi just stupid? Is there a limit to its powers? I don't know because the film doesn't tell us. I just had to guess that 40 years is as far as it can travel, and that once it does travel, it'll take a long time for it to be capable of even doing so again. The film didn't tell me this, by the way. This is a headcanon I had to use to explain to myself something that the film should have explained for me. This is completely unacceptable, and it makes me even more pissed off the longer I think about it. That's because that's not even the only stupid thing the second half does. In order to free Celebi from being shoved inside the villain's dark balls, they use Talk no Jutsu. I'm not even joking here. This universally panned anime trope is used in the climax of this damn movie. Because yes, talking will obviously solve a world-ending disaster. That sounds perfectly logical. Then combine that with another fake-out death for Celebi, and this film's just trying to piss me off. To pour even more salt into the already slaughtered wound too, you have the scene where Celebi is revived in the most anticlimactic way imaginable. Oh my god! Oh my god! This film makes 2000 look like a masterpiece! What sucks too is that this film could have been good. Sam was a good character. Give him a better structured plot with an actual villain, and this could have potentially been a masterpiece. Like, this film feels like it was made for me. I love time travel after all. Why else would I love Erased, Steins Gate, and Tokyo Revengers? That might be why it pisses me off so much. What scares me too is that this probably won't even be the worst one. If I somehow find a film worse than this one, then I don't know if I can continue doing this. I should just close the book now, though. Or else I'll be complaining all day. So, 2 out of 10, currently number 4 in the ranking. God, I hate this film so much. After watching Forever, Heroes felt like a breath of fresh air. It wasn't even good. I didn't even like it, and yet it felt so good to finally get some mid after the storm. Despite being mid though, that doesn't even mean I don't have anything positive to say on it. The opening was super creative, with Ash riding as Totodile, if you know what I mean. And I appreciated how it deviated from the trope of Ash battling someone at the start. This is also the first time an OST stuck out to me. Sure, this is mainly because I'm a sucker for accordions, but I still wanted to point it out. Another thing that helps is how hot Latios is. Oh god, I swear I'll kill whoever clips that! Seriously though, the scene where Latios kissed Ash confused the hell out of me as a kid, and it clearly confused everyone in my server too. So, those were all the positive things I had to say about this film. Now, are there any negative things? For the first time in this video? No, not really. Despite that, did you notice how shallow my praises were? Well, I hope you did, because this is the first time in the video where I haven't had any strong opinions at all. There's no major problems, yet there's no major upsides either. Like, there weren't any themes I picked up on, and even though the characters were alright, they didn't blow me away or anything. This is the first Pokemon movie I've seen which is actively forgettable, which is crazy to see since everyone talks about how all of these are forgettable. It's even crazier too since people call this film one of the good ones. If this is one of the good ones, then I have no clue just how low the standards of quality for these are. Despite saying all this though, I did enjoy myself. For the most part, this is a pretty small scale and laid back story, which just allows you to appreciate the beauty of the Pokemon world, and I liked how it felt. This, of course, changes at the end, but I didn't hate the final act either. The villains, despite being boring, didn't actively piss me off. They kind of reminded me of Team Flare, where they're ridiculous, but you still had to take them seriously at the same time. Somehow, it works here. Hell, they're not even complete psychopaths either, as they care for each other's safety, and even though it doesn't absolve them of their actions, it helps humanize them a bit. Again, these aren't good villains with their lack of personality, motivations, and interesting goals, but they're a notable step up from the other films. That's how I feel about this film as a whole, and it's for this reason that I'm so lenient toward it. This film is probably the peak of what films like 2000 and Forever will try to do. And for that, I had to give it some respect. So, 5 out of 10, currently number 3 on the ranking. Thank you all for watching this one. Uploading this is a pretty major risk given how this subject doesn't fall within my typical niche of discussing competitive Pokemon, but hopefully you enjoyed my rambles regardless, as even though I hated watching these, writing about them was a ton of fun. That's not the only risk taken though. If you've noticed that the music in this video sounds worse than usual, then it's because it's composed by me. I figured that since I'm composing the OST for my light novel, that it wouldn't hurt to use my music in these videos. If you want to listen to these tracks, they're available on my second channel, and if you want to download them for your own personal use, then you can do so by becoming a Tier 3 patron. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank my Tier 3 patrons Regimania and J3 Puffin, alongside my Tier 4 patrons Plasma Energized and Bartek Golda. Your support means more than I could describe with words. If you want to become a patron and appear on this image with a Pokemon of your choosing assigned to your name, then you can do so in the description at as cheap of a cost as $1. That aside, I'll see you all soon.